If you haven't been watching these videos, I would encourage you to look at all of the responses. But what we have been doing in the past few videos is responding to a video entitled 10 Core Christian Beliefs That Jesus Never Taught On. And we've been going through it sequentially and getting into more detail, not spending too much time on it, but at least having some sort of initial response to these claims. And in this video, we are going to continue that and look at the next argument, the next core belief that Jesus supposedly never taught on. And I believe it is argument or core belief number 6. So let's have a look at that. We are going to, again, share the screen and watch it together and see if we can come up with a good response to it.
This difference, and this is a big difference. Christianity has always taught us that God is an angry man on a throne who demands worship and strict obedience.
Before we get into the details, I don't know what Christian background this individual has come from, but to say that Christianity has always taught that God is an angry God that needs complete submission and obedience, I mean, I don't know if he's been to any teaching seminars on Islam, but it sounds very similar to Islam. To say that Christianity has always been teaching this, again, I would question, even though I don't know who this individual is, I would love to know who has been teaching him, what his Christian background and church background is, because to say that Christianity has just been teaching that God is an angry God and he needs complete obedience, again, I just don't see that. And I think that's more to do with a personal background. Again, that's an assumption there, but again, it seems to be quite a bold claim.
And if we disobey his laws, he's going to punish us. In the Old Testament, he sent plagues, famines, and fire from heaven. Well, nobody really believes that anymore today, that he's going to do that. Still, the unconscious or subconscious fear of God, a lot of people have it. Read what Jesus said in the Gospels. You want to know what he told us that God is like? Read the parable of the prodigal son. Google it. And that's Jesus' view of God. No.
Okay. So Jesus never taught that God was an angry God, a vengeful God, that God, if you want to see who God is, see who Jesus is. And that's the claim, I suppose, that Jesus never taught that God was angry. The Christianity has taught that, but Jesus hasn't taught that. I guess that's the point that he wants to make. To try and find any sort of common ground, yes, I would say, if you want to know who the Father is, look at Jesus, because Jesus came to show us the Father. So I think that's very, very important. I think we should be doing that. But to say that Jesus never portrayed that the Father or God is a vengeful God and someone that will ultimately be the one to give judgment, again, I think is a distortion of what the Gospels teach, and therefore a distortion of what Jesus believed and actually taught. For example, if you look at Matthew 10, verse 28, in Matthew 25 as well, if you look at Mark 13, if you look at different passages like that, I think what you'll find is Jesus talked about judgment and he talked about hell very, very much. Actually, more so than we would probably want him to teach about. Again, in another video, we mentioned how Jesus' focus was all on the kingdom of heaven, which was true. But Jesus taught on hell a lot. So much so that it might even make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now, yes, he also talked about God's love and God's mercy as well. So, yeah, we certainly saw that. And we certainly saw the heart of the Father in the ministry and life of Jesus. But to say that we don't see Jesus portraying or talking about God as the judge, as the one that gives mercy, as the one that ultimately is vengeful. I think, again, we're seeing a bit of a distortion there. And interestingly, again, he doesn't want to get into the New Testament epistles, but really, what we see at the cross is the perfect example and perfect combination of God's love and God's justice. Romans chapter 3 is all about that. And if you don't want to read the epistles because you want to focus on the gospels, then fine. Read the gospels. Read what Jesus says about the crucifixion and read the crucifixion accounts. This is where the love of God and the justice of God meet. And this is why I believe that Trinitarian theology is so key in understanding the atonement. That Jesus, truly God, truly man, came as the suffering servant of Isaiah, willingly took on the punishment for sin in order for the whole world to be saved, where God's love for humanity can be shown in such a powerful and tangible way, and at the same time, God's hate, disgust, and vengefulness against sin, his justice is fully portrayed as well. So I think that in the teachings and also in the life, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, we see the perfect combination of who God is. He is a vengeful God against sin. He hates sin, and we all must thank God that we serve a God that actually hates sin and doesn't just look at sin and dismiss it and think, well, I can take it. It's neither here nor there for me. No, we believe in a God who hates sin and wants sin done away with. And ultimately, the way that we see that is in the person and ultimately the sacrifice of the divine Son, Jesus Christ, on the cross, because he loves us and he gave himself for us. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. There's a purpose to the crucifixion in order to deal with sin, and that fulfills God's justice, but there's also a co-purpose of the crucifixion, which was to show how much God actually loved us, how much he went to love us, ultimately in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So again, I don't think this is a faithful rendering of what the Gospels say, and therefore not a faithful rendering of what Jesus actually taught. So I think actually it's a core Christian belief that Jesus did teach, he lived it, he died for it, he rose again for it. I think we see that fully in the person, life, ministry of Jesus. So let me know your thoughts on this response. That's response number 6. And in the next one, we'll go into response number 7 of the supposedly 10 core Christian beliefs that Jesus never taught on. Make sure you give this video a like on your way out, to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you in that 7th response video.